Hello,
Hello, how are you, Mariah?
I'm good, thank you. And how are you?
I'm good.
One thing before we start, I wanted to ask you, could you maybe rotate your phone?
Mm-hmm.
Yes, that's perfect, thank you.
No problem.
Okay, so if you're ready, we can start.
I'm I'm ready.
Hello, dear viewers. Today, my guest is an incredible Italian American, former professional boxer who won world titles in two weight divisions, now boxing commentator and analyst, Paul the Magic Man Malignaggi. Hello, Paul.
How are you?
I'm good, thank you. And how are you? How have you
Doing
been
good.
these days?
I'm
That,
good. I'm good.
that's good to hear. So, you were born in Brooklyn, New York, and are of Italian parentage. What was your childhood like there, and how did this influence your decision to become a professional boxer?
I was born in Brooklyn. Yeah. During my childhood, I didn't really think about boxing too much. My father played third division football or soccer in Italy. So I was born in New York, but my family moved back to Sicily when I was maybe 6 or 7 months old.
Yeah.
And we stayed there most of the time. We would come here in the summer sometime, but in New York, but otherwise we were staying mostly in Italy. So I didn't move to the United States officially until I was almost 6 years old. My parents separated, and my mother's parents had moved to the U.S. So I moved over to the U.S. 6 years old, and my mother's parents were there, and my mother came here as well. And I didn't think about boxing too much. I liked being in Brooklyn. I liked being in New York. It was a big Italian community, it was fun. And it was nice. My mother at a certain point got remarried, and then we moved to New Jersey. But I was about 9 years old at that point, 9, 10 years old. But my childhood in Brooklyn, those for that first decade, I liked it a lot actually, because it was a big sense of community. It's a community that's not there anymore because people get older and their kids are kind of Americanized, But at that time, it was nice. But it didn't affect my boxing because I didn't start boxing until later.
Cool. And how did, for example, your life differ in Italy and in America? Because that's completely two different continents.
Yeah, yeah, it was obviously very different. But as a child, you don't really kind of understand too much. You just follow your parents. So my parents were in Italy, or my parents were in New York. I was just following along with my parents, and I kind of had friends on both sides. So because I had met some kids in New York, and
Yeah.
my grandparents were in New York, so we would visit. We would stay with my grandparents, and I knew some of the kids on that street, and they were also Italian. And then in Italy, it was different because it was a bit more simple. We were in a small town in Sicily, so it was a bit more simple. But as a kid, like I said, I mean, you don't. I don't now. I go back to Sicily a lot, right? I visit my father, and I go back, and now I see obviously very big differences. But as a kid, you don't really see the difference. You just kind of go where your parents go, and this is just your reality. And I liked it. I wasn't sure. I didn't think we would wind up living in New York until we did, though. I really just there was a point in my life where I thought, well, we lived in Italy and that's it. But yeah, I remember when we moved to New York, it wasn't a huge difference. Just without my father left, that was the
Yeah.
only difference. My father left. That was a little bit difficult in the beginning, but other than that, it was cool.
My next question will be about your amateur career, but before I ask this, how did you come to boxing? So you told that your father has also was was working in this field in sports field, but how did you decide, okay, that boxing is going to be my path, and how did you decide to start amateur career like boxing?
I started a little bit late. I was having some trouble in my life at a certain point. My mom and her new husband, I didn't get along with him too much, and there was some problems there. So it was a kind of big problems, for a little while, And now, I'm an adult. My mother's business is her business. I don't know, I get along with everybody. But at the time, it was a kind of a big problem. I didn't agree with a lot of things, and some some bad things happened, and so my mother had to have us living with her parents, my grandparents. So I moved back to New York when I was 15, because my mother, when she got married, we moved to New Jersey, which was kind of like 2 hours away. So we we moved. I got sent back to live with my grandparents when I was 15 years old, and I was kind of getting into some trouble already, and I was going to school there, and I got kicked out of school as well, and when they kicked me out of school, my grandfather had said, you cannot just stay in the street and do what you want here, and in my house, you this is not going to be the way you live, you got kicked out of this school. If we're going to put you in a different school, or you're going to come to work with me. And he started taking me to his construction jobs, but he didn't let me work. He would tell me, go over there and sit down, and he would give me $10 a day. And this happened, $10 a day was nothing, even back then. So I after like 2 weeks, I told him, I said, what am I doing? He said, what do you want? You're not working. You're not, what do you want? You want to get paid for not working? He said, I'm giving you $10 a day. I said, yeah, but I'm not doing anything with my life every single day. I don't want to waste my days. I'm 16 years old at this point. I'm like, I don't want to waste my days. So one of my uncles, he had did some boxing when he was younger, not professionally or anything. Just he spent some time in the gym for like 1 year, and he told my grandfather to take him to the gym, see if he learned some lessons in his gym. If he learned some discipline. So I said, listen, I'll do whatever. I don't want to be here. Whatever you want. I just don't want to be here. So he said, okay, we're gonna take you to the gym. And they took me to the gym. I don't think they thought that I would become a boxer, because at that time I was not a very disciplined person. I didn't commit to any goal. I never committed to any goals. Any goals I had, I never committed to them, like school, for example, or anything else. So I didn't have the personality that made them think this kid can dedicate himself to a sport. I would get into fights and I would get in trouble, but that doesn't mean you can be a boxer, But being a boxer it takes a lot of dedication. So I don't think they did that to make me a boxer. I think they thought I would maybe learn some lessons, and maybe I would straighten out myself a little bit. But instead, it led, one thing led to another. I really enjoyed it. I really enjoyed the challenge every day, and I suddenly had a real passion for it, and I wanted to get better. And it gave me a reason not to get in trouble anymore. It gave me a reason to kind of behave, and I started getting good. I started winning amateur tournaments, and one thing led to another. But that was the beginning. That was how it went.
Oh, that's interesting. So basically, from discipline measures to your career, that's
Yeah,
fascinating.
yeah, yeah.
So yeah, you had a short but successful amateur career, winning 132-pound US title in 2001. And could you tell more about this period of your life, please?
Yeah, this was at a certain point in my amateur career, I started realizing that I can do this, I started attending live fights. There was one important fight that I went to about 6 months after starting boxing. It was Prince Nassim Hamed against Kevin Kelly for the World Championship in Madison Square Garden. And I saw the reaction of the crowd. I saw Hamed was a very big performer, but Kelly was a New Yorker who I had met in the gym, so I kind of had a very big interest in both of these guys, and it was a world championship. And I went to see that. I remember the atmosphere in Madison Square Garden was amazing. It was just really, really a crazy atmosphere. And the fight was excellent fight. Ahmed versus Kelly. If you see it on, it's probably still on YouTube, but it was an amazing fight, a very exciting fight. And after the fight, I'm on the train going home back to Brooklyn, and I'm just thinking to myself, what did I just watch? That was amazing. That was like I was just starstruck, and I was not competing yet. I was just still learning. I was only boxing 6 months, so had not done any competition. I was still learning. But that night I decided, I told myself, I have to do this. I want this in my life, like this. I want to feel what these guys felt tonight. It's kind of interesting because you think you're gonna, everybody wants to do something like this, but really most people can't and won't. So when you tell yourself something, it's kind of naive, kind of innocent. But in that moment, I really believed it. I told myself that night, I said, I'm gonna do this. I'm gonna feel this. I'm gonna I'm gonna become this person. And as my amateur career progressed, I started winning tournaments, more and more tournaments. And the biggest accomplishment was the U.S. National Championships in 2001. And that I was already being pursued by some professional scouts, some professional managers, and some professional promoters. So I realized I was getting good enough to where people I saw on television now were approaching me at these tournaments. They were attending them to see me and to talk to me, giving me business cards, because there was not really a lot of cell phones at the time, giving me business cards. And I start realizing, like, okay, I saw this guy with this champion, or I saw this guy with this other champion. Now he's talking to me. Wow, So I started to really believe in myself more, and I started to realize that I can do this, and that became what happened. I ended up signing a professional contract right after winning the U.S. championships, and from then on, started to pursue a professional goal. The Amateur Boxing Federation in the United States was actually very angry with me because they had wanted me to stay around in the amateurs for another few years for the 2004 Olympics. I did not qualify for the 2000 Olympics,
Mm-hmm.
but by 2001, I was ranked number one, and I was the U.S. champion, and I was young, so they figured they were going to groom me for the Olympics in 2004. But amateur federation in America doesn't really pay. I don't know now, honestly, but at that time doesn't really give money. In other countries, it's more funded. So in American culture, boxing is more of a professional sport. You use the amateurs to learn, and then you turn professional. But in other countries, they fund it a bit better. They have them on stipends and pay. But I didn't have this, and I was living on my grandparents' couch. I'm sleeping on the couch every night for a bunch of years. Since I live with my grandparents. My grandparents are old. They cannot really deal with this too much. I was very grateful to them, but I realized I needed to make money to support myself and become a bit more independent. So I had to turn pro, but they were not happy. I remember they were not happy with me. I remember they called my gym and were yelling at me, telling, they were very angry when they found out I turned pro, but I kind of had to at that point.
Every life choice situation, you should choose what is better for you. And I think
Yeah.
you made the right choice here.
And yeah, I feel like I did as well, because number one, a professional career, you have to embark on it, and it's not millions of dollars right away. You have to
Yeah.
kind of build to that. You have to learn to build to that. But then also, as a professional, I had a lot of injuries to my hands, and because now you're not hitting the headgear, you're hitting skull with the hand, and bone to bone, and my hands were starting to break. So I had to have a bunch of surgeries to my hands. In the first 4 years of my professional boxing career, I had 3 surgeries on my hands. So it slowed me down a lot. And luckily I was able to overcome this because I feel like I turned pro young enough to where when I overcame this, I was still young enough to keep pursuing the goal. If I would have wasted I wouldn't say wasted, but if I would have waited another 3, 4 years in the amateurs, I may have had these problems later with less time to
Yeah.
lose coming back from injury. So I feel like it ended up being good. And then plus 2004 Olympics, it was not a guarantee. They were grooming me for it, but maybe I don't qualify. Maybe another young guy comes over and beats me. So nothing was guaranteed. So I turned pro.
Yeah, so talking about your professional boxing career, you lost your first title fight for the WBO light welterweight belt to a very strong boxer, Miguel Cotto, but you returned to the ring and after a couple of fights you won the IBF light welterweight world title, taking it from Athletic Lamondu. What did you feel about being the champion of the world for the first time?
It was the goal that I had wanted. It was a goal that was a decade in the making by then. I remember my first day in the boxing gym. I remember when my uncle took me to the gym. I never forgot this day. It was easy to remember because it was the same week as the Mike Tyson fight against Evander Holyfield when he bit his ear. So this day is very famous for this fight, right? When Mike Tyson bit Evander Holyfield's ear. That was on the Saturday. I remember my first day in the gym was 2 days before on Thursday. So it was June. That day was June 28th, the fight. So the first day I started boxing, literally just step in the gym, was June 26th, 1997. And I remember being very shocked that the next week there was all kinds of news cameras in this gym because I learned to box in a famous gym. Gleason's gym is a very famous gym. And when I went to Gleason's gym the next week, which was my first full week, there was so many news cameras there wanting people's thoughts on the bite fight because it was such a crazy thing. So this is my first week in the gym and I'm seeing television cameras and I'm like, this place
Crazy.
is crazy. This place is crazy. This is amazing. Like I'm just a kid who just dropped out of school. But anyway, so that was my first day in the gym, June 26th, 97. And I won the world championship June 16th, 1997. So it was a full decade of work to accomplish this. And I felt very, very fulfilled. But I also realized that, now is the time to, by this point, I'm an adult. So I'm also thinking financially as well.
Yeah.
I'm thinking, okay, now is the time to also build on a financial future, because now they're going to pay me a lot of money for the defending this championship. Before I was making okay money, but now with a world championship, you step into a different bracket of money. And so I remember thinking this, but I also remember feeling fulfilled with all the goals and thinking all the things I had to go through to overcome and get to this point. I was very, very happy. Um, at this point, though, you'll realize, most fighters will realize that the business is gets very dirty, because now you're dealing with a lot of money, and so these are things that I had to eventually learn too. But it was, I still regret nothing. It was still an amazing thing and an amazing experience, and that night was very special to me, especially because I had lost to Koto the year before, and the year before in the Koto fight, I had broken my orbit bone, this bone here under
Mm.
my eye, and I had to have surgery for it. So I have titanium here. So I had to come back from this injury where they had to put titanium here in my orbital bone. And I had to, overcome that, have one fight that I won, and then fight for the championship against Endo. And when I beat Endo, it was just a fulfillment of so many things. So it was, very, very, it was a very happy night for me. I'll say that.
After that, you met also with the strongest boxers in your division, such as Ricky Hatton, Juan Diaz, Amir Khan. Are losses an integral part of professional boxing, and how should a world champion react to them?
I think, nobody wants to lose. Nobody wants to plan to lose. But I think when you reach a world class level, you're fighting at a very high level, and all of a sudden now, it's you know it becomes more difficult to win all the time. The amateurs is like this. The amateurs, you don't get to pick your opponents, so you cannot win every single tournament, right? In the amateurs, there's a lot of tournaments, and you cannot win every. So you get beat more in the amateurs because you are fighting top guys a lot. In the pros, what they do a lot of times, they start to build you first to kind of build a following for you and make you a bit more famous, and then they put you in difficult fights. So by the time you reach world championship level, you're basically reaching a level where the tough amateur tournaments that you're fighting that kind of opposition again. So it's the opposition that you don't always beat. So I think that, but now you're there making a lot more money, and also the fights are longer. They're 10 rounds, 12 rounds, so they're more violent because of that. Injuries are more prevalent. Professional boxing, smaller gloves, no headgears, longer fights, so you can be more damaged as well. But I think everything has to have a balance in life. I don't know that you want to lose, but I think every professional boxer, or the majority of them, will have a day where they get beat as well, and they'll have a disappointing nights. I don't think it's about getting beat. I think it's about not accepting the defeat for yourself as something that is okay. I remember there was a point in my career where I was not as sad when I was losing anymore. And I realized that my love for boxing was done, and it was almost time to retire. But when you first start losing at the high level, I remember crying in the dressing room. I remember, just having that disappointment, and I think that's integral for growth. If you go through something like that, to not be so accepting of it, and to, understand that it happens, but understand that you cannot accept this. This is unacceptable for you. You kind of has to be a tough skeptic of yourself. You have to be tough on yourself. Because otherwise you won't be able to overcome.
Yeah.
And so I think that's what it was with me. I would get beat. I would be very sad, obviously, for there were big moments, but I was also got very hungry to come back and succeed again. And as long as I kept this mentality, and I was young enough to do it, I think I had a good career. It was at the end of my career where I no longer had this as much. I was more so thinking, later in my career, I was thinking, at least they paid me good, whatever. That now you realize it's over. At that point, because when your mindset starts to do that, you are closer to the end than you realize.
Mm. Okay, but thank you for explaining, and I think it is very important for any sports person who does any professional sport.
Mm-hmm.
In April 2012 in Donetsk, you met with a strong Ukrainian boxer, Vyacheslav Senchenko. Being an underdog, you, however, defeated him and became the world champion for the second time. How difficult was this fight for you, and in general, did you prefer to fight at home or away?
The fight with Senchenko was interesting because he was undefeated, and no one wanted to go to Ukraine to fight him. He was not coming out of Ukraine. He won the belt, and he was defending it at home, and he was not leaving Ukraine. So boxing is a sport with a lot of politics, you know. So when you go away to somebody, sometimes even within the United States, if I'm from New York and I'm fighting a fighter from another state and I'm fighting him in his home state, it sometimes is more difficult to get a decision. So home countries sometimes also make this very difficult as well. I don't mind the sporting aspect of it. You know, you deal with difficult crowds. You deal with the fans of the other fighter because you're in
Yes.
his home country. I don't mind this. I do mind the politics, though. I do mind the fact that you can go somewhere, you can beat that person, and if you don't, if you go to a decision, you still may not get the decision because everything is based around that person. That is a little bit dirty, a little bit of a dirty part of boxing. So I was worried about going to Vysenchenko in Donetsk, not because I felt Ukraine itself was dirty, but just because I didn't want to travel to somebody's home country to fight them, because this has a chance of happening, and it happens even in America. It happens everywhere, you know. So being I'm not from Ukraine, and Sinchenko was from Ukraine, and he was in his home city, I was a little bit worried. So at first, when they announced this that I was the mandatory contender, I said, I'm not going. I don't care. I'm not going to go. I'll wait for another opportunity somewhere else. I'm not going. And my promoter was mad. Was angry with me. And I eventually was talked into, they gave me a little bit more money and I was talked into taking this chance. And I thought to myself, it's still a world championship opportunity, and I said, I might as well, give, what am I boxing for? If I'm turning down world championships, then what am I doing this for? So I said, okay, I finally decided I would do it, So I went to Donetsk. Was very interesting. I went twice. I went first for the WBA convention 5 months before, where they announced me as the mandatory contender, and then I went. I was announced as mandatory contender. I went back home. I said no, I'm not going to Donetsk to fight him. But then I was talked into it. So 5 months later, I'm back in Donetsk and I'm fighting him. And honestly, it was an excellent experience. I mean, obviously, when you win, you always more happy, right? But it was I was treated very well by the Ukrainians. It was interesting. We also fought in Donbass Arena, which
Mm-hmm.
was just built brand new at that time for Euro 2012 for the football tournament. It was brand new. I fought in a lot of arenas in my life. Donbass Arena was the most state of the art arena I ever fought in. It's a shame that they ruined the stadium, in the war, because this was a state of the art modern stadium with all the technology. It was really, really nice. And like I said, I fought in other arenas. I fought in other football stadiums, in England. I fought in Manchester City Stadium as well, So I can make the comparison. And I thought this was a really nice place. And I was, I don't think anybody expected me to win. I was an underdog. And so when I won the fight, I think it was a little bit shocking for the Sinchenko team and the fans there. But I was treated well. I was treated well. And I remember they put me in a nice hotel right near Donbass Arena. I've heard this hotel is also hit with a missile or something and it's gone too. So that's a shame. But it was a great experience. And also becoming world champion for the second time in my career was an amazing experience as well. I was worried about Sinchenko. Obviously, he was tall, he was big, he was an Olympian. He had made 6 defenses of the championship, so I was definitely worried. But I also knew that I felt I had faced better competition than him as a professional. I felt like the competition he had faced in his career, it was pretty good, but I felt like I fought better fighters. So I felt like in my mind, I said I'm at this point I'm tested. I'm battle tested to fight this kind of fighter, to fight this kind of opponent. I've learned a lot. I'm good. I'm mentally also in a better place. I'm mentally tougher than I was when I was younger. So it all came together that night. It really was a great experience for me, and it was able to extend my career at a world class level because now I was world champion for the second time, and I was able to enjoy some more big fights.
A close fight with Adrian Bronner and a bright victory over Judah. Was this peak of your boxing abilities and your prime, or can the defeats to Sean Porter and Danny Garcia by technical knockouts be explained by something else?
No, I just think that I think the welterweight division when I moved up when I beat Sinchenko, I was not as good as a welterweight as I was as a super lightweight, earlier in my career. But you get a little older, you can't lose the weight anymore, so you have to move up in weight. But I think I was better at the smaller weight class. I was still good at welterweight, but these guys were kind of big, and they were bigger and stronger. And so I think it started to affect me at a certain point, I will say this about Senchenko. I remember after beating him, Ricky Hatton, the guy who beat me in 2008, we were going to rematch. And Ricky Hatton was a big name fighter for a lot of money, big money fighter. And I remember Hatton was coming back. He hadn't fought in a while, and he was coming back, and because he saw I won a world championship, and he beat me 2008. So he decided he was going to come back. This is kind of an interesting part of my career because I thought I was going to make a bunch of money for this fight and also get revenge for a loss I had in my career. But Hatton is told that he cannot fight for the world championship after not fighting for a couple of years. So he has to get one fight. He has to come back. So Hatton wants to impress everybody. Instead of taking an easy fight, who does he choose to come back against? Senchenko. 6 months. So 6 months after I beat Senchenko, there is talk about I just defended the championship one time against I believe it was Pablo Cano. I make a title defense, and Hatton and Senchenko are going to fight the next month. And the English media, because the fight was in England, the English media invite me over, and they're going to announce a rematch with me and Hatton for the championship after Hatton beats Senchenko. But in my mind, I'm thinking, it's not such. Everybody's making like this has already happened. This is not an easy fight for Hatton to come back after 2 years not fighting. And I'm thinking to myself, I mean, I wanted this fight to happen because it's a lot of money. Hatton is a big money fighter, but at the same time, I'm thinking to myself, Senchenko is not an easy opponent. But I went there, and what happens? Senchenko knocks him out. So Senchenko knocks him out, and I remember Senchenko from the ring. I'm outside the ring, and I'm standing up, and I'm like this, And Senchenko looks at me. The fight is over. He looks at me, and he goes,
What can I do?
He did his job, So that was funny. So what ended up happening was we ended up making the Adrian Broner fight. I felt I won the Adrian Broner fight, but I feel like the politics of the sport, I felt it was a close fight. It was a split decision. But I feel like the sport was trying to push a new young star, and Broner was young and he was kind of flashy. And I was already 32. He was 23. I felt I won the fight. I really do. I felt it was close. I felt I won the fight, especially as the champion. I felt like I deserved the decision to go my way in a close fight. But they gave him the decision, and so my career went in a different direction after that.
Okay, you're back.
Yeah.
So, in retirement, you kept busy and you are currently an award winning boxing commentator for Pro Box TV and also BYB bare knuckle fighting. What do you think about the Ukrainian school of boxing and modern Ukrainian boxers?
I really enjoy the Ukrainian school of boxing. I'm really fascinated in general with the Soviet system, of boxing, because there were a lot of very good fighters that were not able to turn professional prior to 1990 because of the Soviet government. And I think to myself, since the Soviet government fell in 1990, we have seen a lot of fighters from Ukraine, a lot of fighters from the Eastern countries in general turn professional and have a lot of success. And I think to myself sometimes, would professional boxing history be different if the Soviets were allowed to turn pro in those years? We have a lot of historical champions in the professional game from before 1990, but they never had to fight the Soviets in the pros. The modern fighters have to fight all the ex-Soviet fighters now. They have to fight fighters from those countries because now those fighters from those countries, they do turn professional, and you see the success they had. And I think Ukraine is one of those countries that has produced a lot of very good fighters. I mean, they've had a golden generation that's now coming to an end, well, almost now, with Lomachenko, Usyk, Bozdik, Baranchik. They were all the same generation, But now you even have a young fighter like Serhiy Bochuk and some other fighters. Ukrainian school of boxing may be one of the best out of all the former Soviet states, I think. They've produced a lot of very good fighters, very, very technical. I think Vasyl Lomachenko is one of the most amazing fighters I've ever seen, honestly. In his best days, he was almost untouchable, and I think as a matter of fact, he's so good that I think in the West they cannot really fully appreciate how good he was. But me as a boxer that I've done this and see this, especially at the smaller weight classes where everything is a bit quicker. For him to do the things he did was really, really amazing, and he's one of my favorite fighters to see. But also, I look at somebody like Usyk, who's fighting later this month again
Yes.
against Tyson Fury, and all the amazing success he's had as well. Really, really impressed with the Ukrainian boxing system, and I think it's not even a shock because I think the system is not just physical; it's a lot of mental training as well. Where in the West, guys who have a lot of talent. They are physically training to, make money and get a little bit spoiled. I feel like the Ukrainians and most of the old former Soviet fighters, even if they make money, their regiment is almost like a robot. They know how to not let it affect their mindset. I feel like in the West, I feel like it even happened to me a little bit. In the West, once you start making too much money, you start to kind of soften up a little bit.
Mm.
And I feel like maybe in the West there's too much of an importance on money, and where in the East, I feel like even if they make money, the importance is on the success itself. And so the money comes with the success, but it's not about the money; it's about the success itself. And you can see that because they stay hungry even when they make millions of dollars. They still stay hungry. They still fight very well. They still fight stay very disciplined. So I think it's a big reason why a lot of Eastern fighters and especially in particular a lot of the Ukrainian fighters have had some great success and have been some of the best fighters in the sport. And of course, I cannot mention Ukrainian fighters, but I'm mentioning the Klitschko's as well.
Yes,
Vladimir and
yes.
Vitaly Klitschko also were amazing fighters. That also, they came out right after the Soviet system. They came out in the '96 Olympic Games. So that was much sooner than me, and they were very very dominant as well.
Yeah, so thank you for explaining this, and I think for our Ukrainian viewers, it would be also very interesting to hear your comments about our Ukrainian boxers from boxing legends. So thank you very much. And I also think in Ukraine, especially now when we have war, every victory is very important, and when it also comes to sports. So that's why also a lot of people, Ukrainians, they watch Olympics, they watch box. So I think Brinchik also has in 4 days uh, a fight, and also Usyk. So that's why we are also following. So thank you very much. And also one of the last questions: what are your hobbies and what music do you listen to?
My hobbies, I like watching sports mostly, old movies. I like old movies as well. Like more so not old, but like 70s, 80s movies, 90s movies, some older than that as well. I prefer older movies. Um, I'm not as active as I used to be. I used to prefer, maybe Sunday mornings playing some football with my friends or soccer. With my friends, especially with my Italian friends. It's still a big cultural thing. It's funny. My favorite sport is actually football. I follow soccer very very religiously. I'm a very big fan of Serie A, the Italian league, and also the Italian national team. I remember in 2006 when Italy won the World Cup, they actually played Ukraine in the quarterfinals and they beat them. I remember Andriy Shevchenko was a very big star in
Yeah.
Italy. Andriy Shevchenko, he played for Milan for a lot of years, and he's one of the biggest stars that has ever played in the Serie A. So my hobby is that too. So it's a good that's more so what I enjoy. And
Okay.
spending time with some family and friends, of course, doing all these things. It's not fun when you do all these things by yourself. So I do enjoy all these things with friends and family.
Yes, that's way better. So right now I'm going to sing you a Ukrainian song to introduce you to Ukrainian music, so you know a lot about Ukrainian sports and so on. But I think Ukrainian music. So this song is by Monatik, very famous Ukrainian singer, and I will sing a little part of it without music.
Okay.
So I will try
I'm
to
familiar with I'm
improvise.
familiar with Monatic. Monatic performed in Brooklyn a few times because there's a big Russian population in Sheepshead Bay. He came to perform in Brooklyn
Oh, that's
several
cool.
times. I don't know if it's been recent, but I remember before COVID and all this stuff, Monatic
Yeah,
would come and perform.
yeah.
'Cause I
So
knew some Russian girls, and they would go
yeah,
see him.
yeah, so that's cool. So that maybe you know this song, but it was actually the original was in Russian, but after
Okay,
the war, so it is in Ukrainian right now. So
okay.
I will sing a Ukrainian version. Особливо так сьогодні думки ноти звучать і кажуть так, а я не бачу їх. Особливо так сьогодні люди шумлять і кажуть так, а я не бачу їх. Особливо так сьогодні зорі горять і кажуть так, а я не бачу їх. Вкрала погляд. Ендорфіни пішли, фантазія пошлить, тобою відчуття залив і очі мозолю. Ендорфіни пішли, фантазія пошлить, ти наче золотом лита, що очі мозолю. Виявилось навколо тебе світ кружить, навколо тебе світ кружить, навколо тебе світ кружить. О, як жити, кружить голови над упаду, голови над упаду, є. Туру-ту, туру-ту-ту, кружить Illuminado Pado, Illuminati Pado.
That's
That's
very good. You know, with you sing very good a cappella. You know, with no instruments. You know, a cappella is very difficult. You sing very good with
oh,
a you
thank
know
you.
a cappella is it means just voice,
Yes,
no instruments. And so it's very it's not easy. It's good. That was very good.
thank you
Excellent,
very much.
excellent work.
It was
Excellent. Work.
like no, no, no
Yeah, no, I
backup.
know. What part of Ukraine are you from?
I am from central Ukraine, Cherkasy. It is not far
Cherkasy.
from Kyiv. Hmm.
Oh, not far from Kiev. My girlfriend is Ukrainian. You know that? I didn't mention in the interview. Yeah, she's from Zhytomyr
Oh, how did you meet her? If I
in
may
Brooklyn.
ask.
Yeah. No, in Brooklyn. I met her. You know, Brooklyn has a large population of former Soviets in
Yeah.
general. You know, Russians, Belarusians, Ukrainians, and whatnot. Yeah, and the neighborhoods kind of neighbor each other, so sometimes we hang out in the same kind of places, and that's how we met, just typical, not like modern days where everything is on social media,
In social media.
in my generation we talk in person,
No, but no, but still it is more like likable also
yeah,
in our
yeah,
generation. So your way
yeah.
was better.
I like it because you know why I like it, because I actually enjoyed some, not everybody likes it. You have to be secure with yourself to enjoy it, but I enjoyed talking to a girl, not knowing her, and she might tell me to get out of here, or she might like me. I like, it's like a rush, because you don't get this with the internet. You
Yeah.
don't get, it's a rush. Like, oh man, I want to. What do I say? How do I say it? Like, and if you say the right things, maybe you're gonna have a conversation. If you say the wrong things, she's gonna tell you fuck off.
Yeah. Yeah,
So, but
definitely.
I used to enjoy this kind of adrenaline,
Yeah.
rush. And you don't have this with social media. With social media, you write, because
Yes, you can
that's not the same
hide
thing.
behind the
Yeah,
profile.
it's not the same thing. So I prefer that old way better for
It's
sure.
not it's not as
Yeah.
interesting. No, but cool. Like I
But,
didn't know
but
this, so
but
thank you.
with my girl, we had to bring her family here from the war.
Yeah.
Her parents her father was in this war. Her father was military. He got hurt in this war, but in 2018, before the official war started, he got hurt in near
Mm.
Donetsk in 2018. So he's discharged from the military. He's kind of hobbled a little bit. He had to have a heart surgery and everything. So her father's hurt. So her father, her parents came, and her sister came, and her niece, her child niece came. And it's cute because her niece, came. She was 2 years old when she came, and now she's 5 and she's going to school. She learned English. It's kind of cute to see. It's a different life.
Yeah.
It's kind of interesting. But yeah, I was happy I was able to help them too. So it's good. It's good. But yeah, so it's funny that that you're Ukrainian,
Yeah.
and how it all comes together. It's so funny. But that's how I know Monotic too. Because she used
Yeah.
to go to the conference.
We are everywhere.
Yeah, exactly. But it's not
Okay.
bad. It's not a bad thing. It's a good
Yes,
thing.
that's a good.
Yeah.
But thank you very much for talking with me today. It was a pleasure. Thank you. Thank you very, very much. I wish you good luck and I hope that we will meet one day face to
Yeah.
face, not
In
social
person.
media.
Yeah. Yes.
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 Exactly.
Thank you very much.
Okay.
And I wish you all the best and success.
Thanks,
No,
Maria. All right. It was good talking to you. Thank you for the interview. And
thank you.
stay well. You have a good night. Okay.
Thank you.
Bye bye.
Bye. Bye
Bye.
bye.